Today I'm driving the most powerful Mazda vehicle ever. When you're told you're going to drive an automaker's most powerful vehicle ever, you expect it to be something sporty and exciting. In Mazda's case, that vehicle is the new CX-60, which is a very, very interesting vehicle. It's also quite powerful, and there's a lot to talk about. But first, let's see its acceleration from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.8 seconds. So what is the Mazda CX-60? Well, it's the automaker's first vehicle built on an all-new rear-wheel drive platform. Mazda made a rear-wheel drive platform in an age when most automakers are trying to move to front-wheel drive and simplify their range. By that I mean they want to make as many vehicles on as few platforms as possible. So with that in mind, it's really something that Mazda made a rear-wheel drive vehicle in 2022. There will be more than one vehicle built on this platform, but Mazda has currently only revealed the CX-60, which is a BMW X3 rival, and there's more to the BMW X3 comparison, because this car has a longitudinally mounted engine. The engine is mounted behind the front axle, so it's mid-engined-ish. And if you look at the vehicle from the outside, its proportions are distinctly rear-wheel drive BMW-esque. Now, why do enthusiasts prefer a rear-wheel drive vehicle? Well, because it frees up the front wheels from having to put power down. It results in more pure and enjoyable and tactile handling. And even when you add four-wheel drive to a rear-wheel drive biased vehicle, it's still better than adding all-wheel drive to a front-wheel drive vehicle. My CX-60 tester is a Homura mid-range model, although the Homura is actually kind of a top-of-the-range model. The Takumi is the top-of-the-range model actually, but this is one step down. And it comes very well equipped. So as standard on any CX-60, you get a full digital driver's display, which is pretty big. The graphics are good, and it looks really, really good. Plus it has very cool animations when you change between the driving modes, which are, I'm currently in sport, but you can also go to normal, EV, and off-road. You also get a very wide infotainment display, which is supposed to be a touchscreen, but other than when I had Apple CarPlay displayed on the screen, I wasn't able to do anything by touching the screen. You can, of course, use it via the rotary control that's now familiar to anybody who's driven a Mazda vehicle, and it works quite well. All CX-60s also get full LED headlights, although you can specify adaptive active high beams that will not blind oncoming cars. All vehicles also get a heated steering wheel and heated front seats, and they all get this lovely sporty steering wheel that's a pleasure to hold on to, and it's quite refreshing because it's much thinner than a BMW or Mercedes AMG steering wheel, for instance. Yet you still feel like you're driving a sporty vehicle, and it's very pleasant to drive the vehicle on longer journeys or on twisty roads, where this car is surprisingly good. My tester does have a few options: the 12-speaker Bose sound system, as well as the panoramic sunroof that opens. It also has cooling for the front seats. You can open the hatch in the back by waving your foot under the bumper. It has 20-inch wheels, which are not standard. It comes as standard with 18s. And this Mazda Soul red paint job, which is stunning. It's a very, very nice shade of red, I think. And it's very unique to Mazda. I mean, for me, whenever I see a speck of red in the distance and it's this red, I know it's a Mazda. My tester being the plug-in hybrid, it has a 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine under the hood. And like I said, it's pushed back very, very far, making this a mid-engined-ish vehicle. You can really see when you open the hood and then the cover that the engine is really, really far back. The four-cylinder that powers the plug-in hybrid is the same Skyactiv G unit that you know from other older Mazdas. In this application, it makes 192 horsepower, and it also has an electric motor that's built into the clutch pack, which makes 136 horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque. Together, they produce 328 horsepower and 500 Newton meters. And you can really feel all that power and torque. This thing is rapid. And it sounds good too. It actually sounds like it has a supercharger. The gas engine under the hood is naturally aspirated, but it sounds like a supercharged unit. It's actually quite fun. The CX-60 also holds the road very well. I don't think it has adaptive dampers. And I didn't feel any difference in suspension stiffness going from normal to sport mode. The car has double wishbone front suspension and a multi-link setup in the back, and it's very well judged, I would say, although it is a bit on the firm side. I mean, it's nice when you're hooning around, but when you're driving at lower speeds over bumpy roads, it does fidget around more than you would like it to. I'm sure this is a byproduct of the 20-inch wheels, but at the same time, I don't think the vehicle would look especially good with anything smaller. I haven't seen it on 18s, but even these look a bit lost in the arches. And even though this is a rear-wheel drive biased vehicle, it doesn't actually have a staggered wheel setup. It has 235s front and rear. In this case, winter tires. I really like the steering though, it's very positive. Interestingly, the last vehicle I drove around this road was the Jaguar F-Pace plug-in hybrid, which has like 70 more horsepower, but it is quite similar in many respects. And I actually think this is quite close to matching that for driver enjoyment and also tactility and confidence-inspiring handling, especially for an SUV. I think this is really good around some bends for an SUV that weighs 2 tons, which was the Jaguar's problem also. But the steering is very sharp. It's a pleasure to steer this vehicle, let me tell you. And while there certainly is lean, as you can see, it's still quite well controlled and it's not dramatic in any way. You won't feel like you're gonna topple over in this vehicle. And you almost get the feeling that the vehicle rotates around you like all good rear-wheel drive biased vehicles should. When you drive it at higher speed, the aforementioned lack of comfort isn't really obvious, and on smooth roads, it's not there. But as with all vehicles and all suspension setups, there's always going to be a compromise. Had it been too soft, I probably would have said, hey, this is a Mazda, why isn't it so sporty? Well, it's sporty now, and I shouldn't be complaining. When you put your foot down in this vehicle, it's interesting that you first get hit by a small surge of acceleration from the electric motor. So the very first instance you put your foot down, you feel the surge from the electric motor. And then when the gas engine wakes up, fraction of a second later, you feel their combined shove. I will say that in some instances, when the gas engine wakes up and intervenes, the vehicle does feel a little bit jerky. It's not the smoothest operation. You can really tell that Mazda doesn't really have that much experience making plug-in hybrids. So let me just try to put it in normal mode. Maybe it will slip into electric. And now when I floor it, there's just a bit of a jolt. Sometimes at lower speeds, when you are in normal mode and the vehicle has slipped into fully electric driving and you stab the gas, that's when the jerkiness that I mentioned is really most obvious, and it doesn't happen all the time. Overall, this is an accomplished driving experience, but don't expect it to be the most comfortable SUV in its class. The plug-in hybrid system draws from a pretty big 17.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack. That's its total capacity, not its usable one. But Mazda says that it should be good enough for 63 kilometers on electricity alone. I'm currently driving the vehicle in winter with temperatures hovering around freezing point, and I charged it once and it didn't go above 35 kilometers, which I think is a fair and accurate number. Maybe you could get closer to 40 in summer. Although keep in mind that even though this car is a plug-in hybrid, so it's not a full electric vehicle, it actually has a heat pump, so it heats the cabin more efficiently than some other vehicles. That's pretty interesting. Its peak charge rate is quite low though. I mean, some plug-in hybrids these days do offer DC fast charging, but this car doesn't. You can charge it at just over 7 kilowatts and it will take you 2.5 hours to get a full charge. But if you open the charging port door, which is on the right, and you can open it just by pushing on the door itself, whereas the gas filler door on the other side, you have to unlock it from the car first. And when you open the charge port door, you see that there's a cutout for a Type 2 charger. So Mazda will either add it to the plug-in hybrid in the future, or it's planning on making a fully electric version of this, which I honestly doubt, but there you go, maybe they will. In terms of its design, I think the CX-60 is the best looking Mazda SUV ever. With its long hood, its swept back greenhouse, and the typical rear-wheel drive vehicle proportions, combined with Mazda's trademark design and styling, it looks like nothing else on the road. It looks very premium, I think, and people will turn their heads, especially if it's finished in this stunning shade of red that I think really suits it. I'm not a huge fan of the black wheels on this Homura trim level vehicle. I would have chosen a different design, but overall it's a great looking thing, let me tell you. I also like the design of the headlights and how the inner LED bars, they actually change to become the indicators. That's pretty cool. I also like the rear of the vehicle, but not as much as the front or the side profile. And what's weird about the rear lights is that the outer part of the clusters, so the part that doesn't lift with the hatch, the part that stays on the vehicle's body, it shines more brightly than the part that does lift with the hatch. I'm not sure what's going on there. And when you apply the brake lights, it's like another smaller light. And when you indicate, it's another smaller light that's right in the center of the circle there. It's a bit of a weird setup. It's like there's too much going on there. I like the design, I like the look of it, but they could have made it smarter and better, I think. But then again, this vehicle will probably get a zillion facelifts, and one of them will probably address the rear lights. When it comes to ground clearance, it's not the most SUV-ish with just 17-ish centimeters. I mean, I've driven crossovers that you cannot get with all-wheel drive that ride higher than this. I do like it though that in true SUV style, when you open the doors, they cover the sills so you won't get dirty when you exit the vehicle. I was tempted to take this vehicle off-roading, but when I saw how low the ground clearance was, I realized it might not be worth it. I mean, I might get stuck, and yeah, I think this is more of an on-road type of SUV. Still don't know why these are a thing, but there you go. Moving inside, my Homura tester has perforated Nappa leather seats with beige contrasting stitching, and it looks quite fancy. What I'm not such a huge fan of is this leather on the dash. I don't get why the texture is so pronounced. I really don't like it. Alfa Romeo, for instance, does something similar, and I also equally dislike that. And it's also present here to the left of the gauge cluster. In the Takumi trim level vehicle, this is completely different if you opt for the light leather interior. This gets like a very cool stitching here, and it's totally different and better, I think. But materials in the vehicle are generally very good. It's only really lower down in the vehicle on the door cards and lower on the center console that you encounter unpleasantness. Although they do seem like quite durable plastics. I also appreciate the interior solidity. This is something that Mazda isn't the best at, in my opinion. I mean, some parts you touch might move, but not so here. This is a great interior and very well put together. I also noticed that when you enable the steering wheel heater, only the grip parts actually heat up, so not the top and the lower part of the steering wheel rim. You might not immediately notice that this is a bigger vehicle compared to the CX-5, for instance. It is, and you really notice it in terms of the width. I mean, this center armrest that opens in two pieces is really, really wide. I mean, it's probably wider than an equivalent BMW. As is this center console. I mean, you could like draw a chessboard here and play chess. And here you'll see the automatic transmission selector, which operates Mazda's own 8-speed dual clutch. It's not a typical dual clutch. It does have a wet clutch pack type deal, but you won't really feel jolts when you change gear. So from the park position, you need to press the button to release it in front of the selector, and then you have to move it to the right for some reason, and then back. Why not just make it a front to back motion? Why do you have to do this left to right thing? And now that we're stopped, I also need to mention the excellent camera system, which has cameras all around the vehicle, and it gives you a very, very good view. It's especially good when off-roading, and Mazda even says they will add a new camera here in the future to see essentially through the vehicle and see the ground underneath. This will be even more useful when off-roading. Sticking to this area, I like the fact that all the climate controls are physical. You just get this row of buttons here. It may look cluttered, but it really isn't. I like these toggle-like buttons that you can adjust the temperature with. I really, really like the fact that you are not forced to use any touchscreen nonsense in this vehicle, which is great. The steering wheel gets normal buttons. You can adjust the adaptive cruise control here. The vehicle will also keep you in lane. These are optional systems. You don't get them as standard. But even with everything ticked, this vehicle, I think, is like 68,000 euros with everything on it. The base price is around 52,000 here in Romania. So I think that's a fair price, especially considering what you're getting and the style of vehicle that Mazda is going for here. It's a fair price. It's cheaper, is what I'm trying to say, compared to a car with an actual premium badge. When it comes to practicality, I have nothing to complain about. The armrest cubby is big. You have two fairly deep cup holders here. You can put your phone here and optionally charge it via a wireless mat. The door pockets are fairly big, although they aren't as deep, so if you put like a big bottle, and then in the driver's compartment here, if you put a big bottle there, it might fly out and end up underneath your pedals, which doesn't sound like an ideal scenario. In the back, I am 183 centimeters tall, and I had no problem with knee room, head room, and I was easily able to stick my feet underneath the front seat, which is hugely important, I think. Even with the front seat set in my driving position, which is all the way down. Oh, and speaking of the driving position, I think that even though you sit quite high in this vehicle, I mean, I think you sit higher than the CX-5 for sure, it still feels somewhat sporty, and you don't feel like you're being moved around by being too high from the roll center of the vehicle. It's fairly okay in this respect. Cargo space is pretty good. You get 577 liters in the trunk, although almost 100 of that is actually in the underfloor storage part, so you don't see it, although you can put the charging cables in there so that they don't flop around. You can fold down the rear backrests 40-20-40, and in doing so, you will get over 1,700 liters of space, which is pretty good. You also get a 230-volt home-style socket. You also get one here on the back of the center console for rear passengers to plug whatever they want in there. One cool thing I noticed driving this vehicle was that when you put it in EV mode, which I'm gonna do now, you can actually hear the vehicle shifting gears, and you can actually hear the electric motor, more so than in other electric vehicles. And what's really cool is that when you put it in neutral, let me just stop here and demonstrate it. Other vehicles with a similar setup with the electric motor that's in the gearbox, they also shift gears, but in the CX-60, it's more obvious, and I love it. So we're still in EV mode. I put it in neutral, and I am revving an electric motor. I think this is fun. I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I think this is a very amusing thing to do, to rev the electric motor while you're in neutral and actually hear it. Overall, I think there is a lot to like about the CX-60, and it heralds very good things for vehicles built on this platform. Mazda initially said that it was also going to make a sedan type vehicle on this platform, but those plans may have fallen through. We're not sure. But it does plan on launching a CX-70, which will be the vehicle that it wants to sell in the US. It will be mechanically very similar to this, but it will be a bit wider and more SUV-like in its design, and that's destined for the United States. There's also a CX-90 coming on this platform, which is going to be a 3-row SUV. I'm not sure if the CX-70 is going to be a 3-row or not, but the larger CX-90 definitely. But Mazda has to be praised for creating this platform. I mean, let's not forget, it's not the world's biggest automaker. I mean, it's the world's 17th largest automaker, both by sales volume and revenues, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So gathering the resources to create its own rear-wheel drive platform to make luxury vehicles is not something small automakers do. Don't get me wrong, it's not a small automaker, but when you compare it to Volkswagen, it is. And such vehicles, luxury-like vehicles, they need to be comfortable and refined. And while on the comfort front, this one is not quite perfect, although maybe once Mazda introduces the other two engines and the vehicle weight will come down by at least 100 kilos, maybe more, with either the 3.3-liter diesel or the 3-liter 6-cylinder gas engine. Those will surely be lighter, and maybe they will have a different suspension setup and better ride. We'll have to wait and see. But I do have to praise this vehicle for its high-speed refinement. So we're accelerating to the legal limit, and it's certainly quite okay. I do hear some wind whistle around the mirrors, and it has to be said, when it comes to the mirrors, there's something I observed and I did not approve of, and that's the fact that they shake at speed, even now when I'm looking in the mirror, so that's a bit of a bummer. But this is a minor niggle, obviously, and I'm sure Mazda is already aware of it and will fix it without making a fuss. And before I end the video, let's see how the vehicle handles driving itself. Have you seen the lanes? You have not. Seems to stay in the center of the lane fairly well. It doesn't move from line to line. The vehicle also has a camera that faces the driver that can be used for both telling the vehicle if you are distracted or not, but it's also used for the automatic seat adjustment. So you input your height into the vehicle's infotainment and it will adjust the driving position for you. However, it doesn't put me in my ideal driving position, which is with the steering wheel as close as I can, the seat as low as it'll go. So the position the car recommends has me stretching out too far to reach the steering wheel. But it's still remarkable that this vehicle is new from the ground up. It shares little, if anything, with other Mazda vehicles, and it's already so good. That pretty much sums up my thoughts on the Mazda CX-60. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.